Good morning, David Theus coming to you again with a Saturday morning coaching call brought to you by the Small Business Patriot. And if you notice, a little bit different format this morning. I'm the only one here today. So we're going to be introducing two things happened today. I messed up on a scheduling conflict. I double booked myself and I didn't get the exact time for my second appointment to start. So I made the assumption, we all know what happens when you assume, that it started at 8 o'clock and indeed it starts today at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to be able to make that time and no problem. But in that happening, I jeopardized and canceled our Saturday morning coaching call with other participants. Now, having said that, this may actually be a good segue for us to, or at least a transition. I'm going to be coming to this broadcast probably looks like on Wednesdays with a thought of the day or a thought of the week as the week progresses, with some insight on a one-on-one with you folks, and continuing the Saturday morning coaching call with those folks that need to come on and get some coaching and peer advisement that we've been doing for these first 5 or 6 episodes. So it's not going away. We're adding some additional content in the form that I'll be bringing a coaching 15 to 20 minute session one-on-one with you here in the room. So forgive me, sometimes I try not to do that, but sometimes it happens, and here we are. Hopefully some good will come from it. I want to speak to you today about a word that's been on my heart called awareness, to be aware. And we've got a lot of stuff going on in the world as of the last 5 or 6 days. And believe it or not, it's going to have some direct effect on us, especially as our small businesses and business owners. I want you to, long gone are the days where we can open the shop, turn on the open sign, and if we need something, just know that we can turn around and source it through our local suppliers. Maybe our sphere of influence is 100 miles around our business, depending on the type of business you have. You could be very local, you could be very regional, or even national in scope. But the smaller you are, historically, we've always been able to have readily available sources and readily available supplies to supplement our business. So things are changing now. We're a global economy, and I know you've heard that. And sometimes it's easier to put our head in the sand and throw our arms up in the air and say, look, I don't want to get involved in this. This politics stuff it's insane. I can't stand it. It's stressful. I don't want to get involved. People always have different opinions. How do you find the truth? All those things play into this. But what I want to instill upon you is it's so important now to be a student of our surroundings, to be aware, to be a good Boy Scout, to be prepared. I'm not asking you to be an economist. I'm not asking you to go to school and get a graduate degree in economics, excuse me. But I do want you to be aware. So you're going to have to spend some time of your day developing some sources that you can get some best possible news and information from. Maybe come view us here on the Small Business Patriot, and you got to stay involved. So let's get right to it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this today, but I want to give you some context what's happening over with the Russian-Ukraine situation, why it's important to us, even as small business owners here stateside. So if you're not aware of this, by the way, the U.S. is now a net importer of oil. Towards the end of the Trump administration, we had reached a position of energy independence where we were actually producing and shipping oil to other countries using our own oil products pulled up out of the ground or put together right here in the good old US, and actually shipping excess oil to other countries. Well, that's no longer the case. Mr. Biden, upon his inauguration, decided to shut off the Keystone Pipeline production and also stop fracking. And then shift our oil purchases 7% apparently to Russia. And let me give you some breakdown based on an article that was in Forbes magazine, Forbes Online. You can look this up. It's called "Russia is a Major Supplier of Oil to the U.S." The author is Robert Rapier, and that was published on February 21st of 2022, again from Forbes Online. We are now a net importer of oil. as of late 2021, the U.S. was importing 8.5 million barrels per day. I'm reading actually some notes I've taken from the article. I just want you to be aware of this. Again, just to give you some context of what's happening and how this may affect us and how you can start thinking as a small business person, whatever size, that what effects you may need to prepare for. So again, we as a nation, we're importing 8.5 million barrels per day from all countries. And our top supplier to our north is Canada. Canada supplies just over 50% of our oil consumption at 4.5 million barrels per day. The second supplier to our southern border is Mexico at 700,000 barrels per day. And lo and behold, number three supplier as of the beginning of last year is Russia at 595,000 barrels per day. And last, and if you're old enough like I am to remember that the tables have turned, Saudi Arabia comes in at number 4 at 555,000 barrels per day. And I can remember a day when we relied heavily on Saudi Arabia for the lion's share of our oil production, or the lion's share of our oil consumption. And so Russia, as of late 2021, accounts for 7% of our overall oil production consumption. Now, why is that important? Well, just like in the markets, in the stock markets, volatility is not a friend of the markets, and not a friend of economies, and not a friend of customer activity. So anytime there's volatility, even your own household, there's volatility, it's stressful. And so what's happening now, we're seeing firsthand, Russia has decided to go into Ukraine. Now, if you're not aware of this, just to give you a little bit of historical context, 2014, get a map out, first of all, Google map of Europe and get yourself situated so we can see where Russia is and see where we're talking about with the Black Sea, Crimea, Ukraine, Eastern Europe. And you can see pretty quickly the chess pieces that fall in place. If you're not aware of this, the Baltic states were part of the USSR, and when they fell, they were freed. And so I don't know if Mr. Putin is nostalgic from his early days of the KGB, and he wants to reestablish and realign the USSR as he knew it. I think he's a lot more strategic than nostalgic, but he needs water access to the Black Sea. It's strategic, it's for economic reasons and for military. And so in 2014, during, I think it was the Obama administration, he basically walked into Crimea and said, we're taking this back, which gave him direct access to the Black Sea through a peninsula, or through basically a channel that he had to get from the Georgia area to Crimea, and with his eyes set on Ukraine. Now, why is Ukraine important to him? If you don't know this, Ukraine's a fairly large producer of natural gas. They don't produce a lot of oil as much as Russia does, but they happen to be in direct location-wise for a transit. So when Russia produces oil, he can pipe it, truck it, whatever he needs to do across Ukraine to get to the Black Sea. So strategically, it's an efficiency for him to move his oil. They call it, Ukraine is an important transit location for oil and gas. So we can get the oil either across the Ukraine or to the ports on the southern shore into the Black Sea, and then ship the oil out through the Mediterranean over to the Atlantic. So strategically, Ukraine is very important. Now, back to nostalgia for Mr. Putin. I don't want to dwell too much on this side of the conversation. The Baltic states just north of Ukraine are all within his purview. There's plenty of argument that those could be next. I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Ukraine. But the bottom line is there's some serious volatility going on in that region, which just so happens that could represent a disconnection of our 7% of our oil supply. So let's jump back over to the United States and see what that might have effect on us. So that's the context, what's going on over in Eastern Europe. And lo and behold, we're relying on 7% of our oil supply from Russia. Now, Our largest oil supplier at 4.5 million barrels per day, just over 50% of our oil is coming from Canada. Now, geopolitically, do you have an idea what's going on in Canada lately? I was asking a friend of mine just the other day, how do we move oil? We can put it in a pipe and put it across a pipeline. We can put it in an oil tanker and put it on the water and ship it somewhere, or we can move it by truck. Well, God bless the truckers of Canada, and now the Freedom Caravan that's moving from California to heading toward the East Coast of our own. But we already have a trucker shortage because of COVID, and now we need trucks to move petroleum out of Canada into the United States. So 50%, over 50% of our oil consumption comes out of Canada. Oh, lo and behold, Mexico represents the number two supplier at 700,000 barrels per day. And Mexico, we are suffering from an open border. At best, there's a volatility at the southern border and our relations with Mexico at this point. And so any opportunity that again raises volatility is stress on our systems. And so I think hopefully you can gather a sense of context of what's going on. We're no longer a small neighborhood shop that relies solely on our sphere of influence of maybe 100 miles circumference around our business. We need to at least be well versed in what's happening, and so you can start to plan accordingly. I'm a believer. I don't believe that we can solve all the problems for the future. We can't see the future. And I don't want you to freak out and be all stressed out over this. But at the same time, I would rather you be informed than to have your head in the sand and wake up one day when this things really start changing and not know what's going on. So I charge you now that you're going to have to be a student, not only of your business, but the world that surrounds you, and be aware. Aware is the word of the day, awareness. Be aware of what's going on. So if you can, anything that we use in today's commercial applications, anything from all plastics, first of all, come from oil. So how does this affect me, Dave? All plastics comes from oil, packaging, from plastic garbage bags to containers that hold chemicals, emulsions, anything that we may actually package things into to sell, whether it be a hair salon, believe it or not, or skincare products, anything that comes in a plastic container. You can go to the grocery store or go to your supply house and see tons and tons of plastic. That all comes from oil production. Anything that needs to be transported, whether it be from the factory to distribution hubs, from the distribution hubs to your retail outlets or your wholesale outlets, and from your wholesale outlets delivered to you, it rides in some form of transportation, probably a truck. And those trucks take fuel. And part of that fuel comes from our oil consumption that we're bringing in from different countries. Everything that we sell, touch, deliver has got ties back to oil. Now, some of you may be making an argument, well, that's why we got to get off this fossil fuel. Well, that's another podcast, but the reality is we're going to be on this for quite a while, unless we start teleporting things back and forth to our company. So that's not even an argument worth having today. So again, I don't want to put you, I'm not a henny penny. I'm not the sky is falling, doom is gloom guy. I want to be informed. I want to be as educated as I possibly can. I'm not expecting you to go out and get a master's degree in economics. I just want you to open your eyes, take the blinders off and open your eyes to what's going on around you. And so, for example, I was at the grocery store this morning, and this is not the direct application, but I started to think about the essentials. We ran out of coffee this morning. To make this a little lighthearted, I got to the kitchen at 7 o'clock this morning, and I was out of coffee. And I'm like, oh, this is no good. So I went to Publix, my local Publix, and I grabbed the coffee bin that I buy, their breakfast blend, for example. And I said, you know what? This stays fresh. It's got a sealed container. I'm going to buy 2 of them. This is not an advocate running on the store. I don't want to run out of toilet paper again, but the essentials, coffee. Just this morning trip to the Publix, I went ahead and grabbed 2. I went over and grabbed some shaving cream. I picked up 1 extra container. So now I have 2 of those. and there's a medication kind of thing that I use over the counter. And I said, you know what, I'm going to grab 2 of those. And so those essential elements that I thought I needed from a personal standpoint, I was going to, hey, I'm here. I'm using my time efficiently. I've taken the time to get in my car and drive to the store. I'm going to make good decisions instead of having to make this trip now, only in 2-3 weeks have to make the trip again back for those essentials. So what I want to share with you is now, as a business person, I want you to take a look at your business and take a look at those things that you use on a recurring basis, the essentials, I would say, and let's start making our trips more efficient. Let's get rid of the, oh, I forgot this. Don't worry about it. I can run to the store and get another one. It's going to mean we take a little bit extra time and put some planning together. Maybe we make a list, like a shopping list, before we go out and procure our supplies. I think it's important for you to start realizing where your supplies come from, your vendors, your suppliers. It's a conversation that you can start having right now by asking them, hey, by the way, I use this stuff all the time. This is a product I order from you reoccurring. Where does it come from? I'm not trying to circumvent you, go around you, just have an honest conversation, have a better understanding. What does that supply chain look like for you? Are you seeing an uninterrupted supply chain? Should I go ahead and order an extra one this week or this month? Should I pick up maybe 2 this month while you've got them in stock? That's the kind of conversation you need to be having. Then you need to have a good understanding where these products come from, where these things are supplied from. And so you can look at the globe in a geopolitical mindset and see strife in those areas. And you can start to think to yourself, where is this supply chain going to be 30 to 60 to 90 days? I was sharing with this fellow I was talking to yesterday. Typically, these things don't change our lifestyle immediately. They happen with a 30, 60, 90-day window. And we can quickly see where it is March 1st, just around the corner. So March, April, May, 90 days from now, school's going to be getting out the 1st of June. Summer vacations that you've been saving for, you've got a little extra money in your pocket, and you thought this is the year you're going to take your family to another state or to a theme park or something. You're not going to fly because you can't stand flying, but you're going to drive. Where might gas prices be in 30, 60 to 90 days? The rumor mill is $5 a gallon. I would not be surprised if we hit $7, $8, maybe even $10 a gallon. Again, I'm not a doom and gloom guy, but I mean, it's just common sense. If the world is in turmoil and we don't know yet what's going to happen with the ends of the Ukraine, what is their infrastructure going to look like when this thing's done? What is Russia, their ability to maintain or manufacturing and producing oil? And then where are the truckers going to be coming out of Canada for our supplies? 30, 60, 90 days. Does your personal family going to change the patterns in what you do over the coming summer? Is your business going to be affected by that? So I really want to make this message today about awareness, to be aware. So please take a few moments this week and sit down with your staff members and your family members and have a conversation about the essentials. What is it, the things we need to continue to operate our businesses and our home life? And don't make this a run on the store. That's not appropriate. Don't be a hoard and take things that maybe someone else might need, but be prudent. The word should also be prudent. That means be wise and looking to the future, what things you may need to procure. So in wrapping up today's conversation, I think it's important that we begin, if you haven't done so already, that we begin to have context about what things are happening around our surroundings. And we need to push out our surroundings to a global marketplace. You should already be doing this, but if you're not, I know there's a lot of folks that don't think about this, even down to the local hair salon and skincare providers, all those folks that rely upon those plastics that come from oil, that's going to be affected. So again, I just implore you to take a moment, sit down with your family, sit down with your fellow coworkers, your employees, your staff, have a conversation with your vendors as you go throughout the week and start asking them, by the way, taking a look at our next 30 to 60 to 90 days of business, where are we getting these supplies from? Do you see any supply chain, further supply chain being upset? And maybe these articles or these pieces of equipment or these supplies that have been readily available now, do you foresee any hiccup or changes coming down the line? And if they say yes or no, I think it would be prudent on your part to go ahead and facilitate procuring some of those things that you know you're going to need, and maybe pick up an extra one or two. Pick up an extra gross or however many you go through in a month. If the budget affords yourself to do that, truly look at your essentials that you're going to need to maintain your business and start planning accordingly. Again, not a doom and gloomer, but someone that I believe that we should be informed. So having said that, this is a format that I'd like to bring to this equation. We're going to continue our Saturday morning coaching call with those participants that want to join us, and from our members of my organization. And then on a weekly basis, probably Wednesday, I think that's where my mind kind of gets full of information from the weekend, and I've gathered some new information. I'll bring what, I don't have a name for this thing yet, a thought of the day or a thought of the week, but it'll be a coaching session that we'll get together and do one of these on one-on-one basis. Okay. Again, my name is David Theus. This is Saturday morning coaching call brought to you by the Small Business Patriot. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and share and subscribe and tell a friend. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, thank you very much. First of all, like and share us as well on Spotify and be a subscriber as well. And again, I appreciate every one of you that may be stopping by to see us. And I hope this has been helpful. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you in this capacity. Stay vigilant, folks. Stay vigilant.